introduce you?
Oh, I don't care.
Hey, y'all, this is Nick Sturgeon. He's the Director of Information Security over at IU Health. He's here today to present to us.
Yeah. The ghosts. Not wanting to. So again, my name's Nick Sturgeon. I'll get a little bit more into my background here in a minute, but just real quick, I've been in IT basically all of my life. My first computer was an Apple II. For some of you, that it's a really old system. Love to take it apart, love to put it back together, and that really just grew as I got older and realized, hey, I want to be in IT and be a geek and get paid for it. So, but my journey has gone this zigzagged and picked up some other stuff. And when Jessica reached out, it's like, what would have helped me as I was getting into my professional career, assuming that there's a varying degree of where folks are at, and especially getting in IT. From the technical perspective, and as a hiring manager, I look for those folks that can learn technology quick. Personally, I don't care if you are a master in Oracle or this or that. I just want to know that you can learn technology quick. There's certain skill sets based on the job. Obviously, programmer need to know how to develop and all that, or for hardware or whatever. Some of those core skills based on the niche. But some of the things I look for are the soft skills. Can you communicate and all of that stuff? So really, as I was thinking about this presentation, and over the last few years of really expanding my own ability, I came across a podcast on introverts. I've always known I've been an introvert. Probably you say, what is an introvert doing giving a presentation and going out giving presentations in front of small and large groups? Absolutely terrifies me. Absolutely. Every time I get nervous, but there's a way that I started honing in on my own kind of biorhythms and just understanding how can I be the best me and give the best presentation or the best meeting possible. And really that podcast kind of helped in the introverted, extroverted test that was sent out. And again, it was just to kind of help set the stage for this presentation. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, and I tend to lean more towards the introvert in this presentation because that's what I am. It's not picking on extroverts. There are also some tips here for you that are introvert or extroverts as well, but it is a spectrum. And the one thing, and even as I took the test again this morning, I found that I was way more introverted this morning than I am in the afternoon. So, because my initial test was more kind of high center, this morning it was like in the 30s. So that's the other thing, and part of this is some of these tips that I'll get into is you got to learn yourself. And if you're going for that job, whether it's your first job or your 50th, like mine here just recently, you want to be able to build yourself to show the best. And there's tips and tricks that you want to craft and get better, and as you change, and knowing just, well, I'm not a morning person, but I've got an 8 a.m. interview. What do I need to do to make sure I'm presenting my best self to that interview or that presentation? Because even as I've moved up in management, there's just some things that I cannot avoid. Like if I go present at a conference, like last week at USI, and it's at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm not a morning person. I don't really wake up until the afternoon. So really this whole thing is to get you guys thinking about yourself and how you can present and be the best self throughout the day. Meetings, presentations, networking. I will give a quick plug. Tomorrow, there is the State of Indiana Cybersecurity Job Fair. So there will be a homework assignment out of this as well, because I will be there representing IU Health. So get into it. Obviously, it's not October or an October presentation without a mention of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Own it, secure it, protect it. Hopefully, I don't know how many folks in here are looking at a cybersecurity type of career, but it's really one of these things I'd be remiss not to give a shameless plug.
Well, it's everybody's job.
Yeah, it is everybody's job, whether you're in security or not. So a little bit of an icebreaker here to kick things off. How many people would just love to go in a crowded room? Show of hands. Okay. Who hates going into a room that's already crowded? Okay. Yeah, that's me too. Come on in. Welcome. Go ahead and sign in. Who loves just the small talk, water cooler, how's the weather, blah, blah, blah? Who loves that type of chatting? Okay. Who loves those deeper kind of conversations that you get into? Okay. Yeah. And this goes, who would rather that one-on-one conversation versus the kind of group talk? Okay. If you're in a group, how does that make you feel? I'll pick on you. How do you feel in that group talk?
I'm usually really nervous.
Nervous?
I tend to stumble over my words and get all anxious.
What about you?
Yeah,
Same. Who loves being in a group talking? What is it about it that you like?
Different ideas from different kinds of people.
Okay.
I like the most.
Yeah. So, and then I already mentioned, who's a morning person? Who doesn't wake up until about 11 o'clock at night? Yeah. So part of this does go into that spectrum of introversion and extroversion. And like I mentioned, people will shift depending on the time of the day. And really, again, is maximizing your productivity throughout the day based on when you're more asleep or when you're more awake. So if you're more of an afternoon person, maybe you schedule those meetings or or those big presentations that you want to give towards the afternoon. Or if you're in the morning person, same thing. Or me, first thing in the morning, I like to do some research. I like to read. It's when I'm kind of at my most creative. So I plan my day out. I learn to maybe do some programming or scripting in the morning when my mind is more creative versus giving that presentation or speech or holding that big meeting in the afternoon. So it just gives you an idea. There's no one size fits all to this. Again, take an inward look at yourself and say, okay, how can I start planning this out and being, really cognizant and cautious about when you interact and being better throughout the day. Again, already the night out. So real quick, Susan Cain. If you've not seen this, I may be able to play a little bit more of it. It's about a 20-minute video, but I'm going to play the first, it's 8, maybe 9 minutes of it, because there's some really powerful things that she says. I think are really things that we can all, whether we're introvert or extrovert, but again, she leans more towards the introverted on spectrum. But let me play this real quick and just kind of help set the stage for the rest of it. Hopefully it'll play. I don't know if we've got sound.
Oh, I didn't check that. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. I probably should check that. Can I get an IT person?
Well,
We'll improvise
I think it said headphones.
headphones. If you, yeah.
go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry. It's too small back there.
So it looks like that's, and let's see, we'll go back here. See if it'll,
It's just weird.
yeah, all right.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Try opening your phone. It was YouTube.
Yeah, let's see. Sounds there.
No, see if you click on where it says YouTube on the right hand side. It
Yeah.
should open it in Chrome. See if it'll at least work there.
Yeah,
So it went to full screen.
yeah. Okay.
Never mind.
Anyway, the video will be in the presentation, and what I will actually go back to it. So the gist of what I wanted, what she was going to tell, and she is more eloquent about it than I am, is that especially those that are introverted, there tends to be a stigma against the introverts, and then the extroverts tend to get out and be more present because that's what they thrive in. Whereas an introvert or those who are more introverted tend to be more reserved. They come off shy, but there are a lot of smart people throughout history, a lot of great leaders who also have been introverted. And she makes a comment about some of the best leaders are introverted because they don't want the power. They don't want the center of attention. And not to bash on Jessica and those like Jessica, great
Bash on
people. When the presentation gets out, take time, go through the entire presentation. It's probably one of the better TED Talks that I've seen. You notice she's got a bag that she carries out. And also I will, little tip, when you're watching these TED Talks or other presentations, start to make some mental notes. Say, what are they doing well? Or what can I do that I think would capture that audience or capture the folks that I'm listening to, again, either in a meeting, in an interview, or a presentation. So, and when I started my journey about 4 years ago to be more active in presenting, and I tell you, it was a scary decision to make because I'd rather just be in my office, hammering away on the keyboard, taking care of stuff than I would be out here. But I do get the joy of being able to teach. So that kind of counterbalances that fear and that kind of introverted side of me a little bit. So my story, I mentioned, I've been an introvert. I was that scrawny, geeky, little nerdy kid growing up, was picked on. And made fun. Oh, you had glasses and all of that. Was a typical kind of 80. I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. So think you're a stereotypical geek. Had a passion that really didn't come out until about my high school when I decided, you know what, I've got to step up and do some things for myself. I decided to go to Indiana State for degree in management information systems. I said I'm going to do it in 4 years. Got it done in 4 years. Graduated with almost a 3.5 GPA, and then went out into the real world in 2003. Well, for some history lessons in the IT field, there was the .com bubble bust that happened. So it's really hard for a wet behind the ear college graduate to get a job in IT. So I kind of stumbled around and decided, and there was another little thing that was kind of there nagging at me, was a career in law enforcement. So I started pursuing a career to be a cop. And I felt my IT background would help distinguish me from everybody else. So it took a little while. It had some personal ups and personal downs, and it moved out west right after I graduated to Vegas, talking about a great town to live in when you're just a new college graduate. Loved it. Ended up coming back to Indiana after about a year. Had some personal things that drew me back to Indiana. And then through that, those few years from about 2004, late 2004, when I came to 2006, were kind of some of the most challenging times, both personally and professionally, until I decided to, you know what, I'm going to go back and start trying to be in law enforcement. So in 2006, I applied to the Indiana State Police for the 67th Recruit Academy. And again, keeping in mind, I'm this, I've gotten a little bit better with, presenting and, a little bit comfortable with who I am, but I'm going, and I'm this kind of geeky kid going to be in one of the most dangerous professions in the world. It's not as bad as it was then, and there are a lot of things socially have changed over the from when I first came in to when I decided to get out to pursue some other passions. But here's me, right here, full-blown state trooper, talking about getting up every day, and it's something I very rarely admit, but every day there's that little pit of fear in my stomach. Am I going to make it home that night to my family? But it's conquering those fears, conquering those things and challenging yourself that really push you. And if it's anything else, it is constantly challenge yourself. And also making note. It's okay to make notes, even in a journal, or of those things that you do. And that little hint's important for later on in the presentation. So fast forward, I was one of just over 6,000 applicants to that class. What distinguished me from all the other folks, and there was 150 of us that went into that class, the largest state police class in the state's history, probably will be the largest state police class, unless they decide to change their methodology on how many people they take. So those things that I was able to do and distinguish myself and be able to communicate that to a board of, I think there are like 5 people on that interview board, talking about a very intimidating place to be, is in front of a group of seasoned law enforcement officers just drilling you. It's very intimidating, but you've got to have that confidence in yourself. How do you gain that confidence? And we'll get into it. You just know yourself inside and out. And taking all that other time of day and all that other stuff and putting that together will help raise your confidence. So I got promoted, got into cyber forensics as kind of a secondary responsibility, got a master's degree in cyber forensics from Purdue in graduated in 2015. Decided, well, those student loans are coming due. State police doesn't pay all that great. Loved what I did, but financially it's like, okay, I've got to do something else. And so went to another state agency for a couple of years, ran a couple of statewide cybersecurity programs for the Office of Technology, and then went out to the private sector. I've been with a local cybersecurity firm, went and did consulting for a Big Four consulting professional services firm, and now I'm here at IU Health, so mainly supporting the IU School of Medicine with cyber risk management. So that's my story within a few minutes. But one of the things Susan says in her presentation, and I'll read the quote directly, the key then to maximizing our talents is for all of us to put ourselves in the zone of stimulation that is right for us. When I first heard that, I mean, it just spoke to me, because that's really what I had been trying to do, but she verbalized it perfectly. And that's really one of the things, if you take anything else away from this presentation, it's getting in that zone. It's putting yourself in the position to be the best that you can be. And I'm telling you, when you get in front of a hiring manager, if you are doing that little extra to stand out, whether it's at a career fair or some networking event, or if it's that interview, being in that frame of mind, being in that right zone, that will distinguish you from everybody else that recruiter, that hiring manager is talking to. Excuse me. So real quick, already touched on it quite a bit, but introversion, you really are better in small groups, by yourself, one-on-one situations. The extrovert, they thrive in front of groups or in groups. And it's really about how, and as I've heard it, how your battery is recharged. The introvert, I 100% this way, I can be in a one-on-one conversation for hours, and I just want to keep going. A group situation, my battery drains quickly. I'm done. I'm mentally exhausted. Even today, and just a pro tip, after I get done, there's not a whole lot on my calendar. I will shut my door. I will take some time to refocus by myself to charge my battery up, and then I'm on. Now, typically, I don't, and this week has just been crazy. I was at a cybersecurity event yesterday around a bunch of folks. The Cyber Advisor Alliance put on a thing for some high school students interested in cybersecurity and IT, but it was about 110 people. Today, I'm in a little bit smaller group, so it's not bad, but I'm still up presenting. I know myself that battery is going to be draining. Tomorrow, we're there at the cybersecurity career fair. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. This weekend, I'm just going to be wiped out. I'm not going to be able to get a whole lot of stuff done because I'm just going to be drained. But I've learned that about myself over really focusing on it and making a cognizant effort about that. But generally, I don't like to schedule a lot of these things back to back, because I know if I do a lot of those things that drains my battery, I'm not going to be the best person I can be, and I'm not going to be able to give. They need that little extra that I need to give. But there's things that you can do to kind of help give those little quick recharges. On the extrovert, man, they just thrive. They want to be out and socializing, because that charges their battery. So if you are that person, sometimes you may not be able to get away from those one-on-one conversations. But it's just understanding yourself and recognizing yourself. So who did the self-assessment? Okay, anybody would like to share how what they got? And they don't have, you guys don't have to. It just make this a little bit more interactive. I'll go ahead and pick on Jessica.
Right. I'm 75% social. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
73% social.
Right.
52% social.
Okay. Okay. So the stat is, go ahead. 50, yeah, okay.
I'm 38.
38. Now that got everybody warmed up. 39. This morning I was about, I think 37. And when I took it a couple weeks ago after I was trying to find something that was sort of a semblance of a good self-assessment, I was about 51. Most people tend to be kind of center. Those that are highly extroverted, obviously, and vice versa. But I don't know if you guys have heard of the Myers-Briggs assessment. There's some others out there that are really good. If you have the opportunity, and actually, and I will pass this around. So one of the things I love about IU Health, and I'll put a big plug there, is they are,
Strengths Quest?
yep,
We do that too.
the strength of Gallup.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll share that. I don't have any, pass that around. But if you have an opportunity to do a self-assessment through a company, I highly suggest doing it. There's the Gallup one, Myers-Briggs, they have been refined year over year over year, and they're really good. There was one that I took when I was with EY, doing some leadership training, and I couldn't find it, but man, that was spot on. But the purpose is to do those, every couple of years, because you will change. And even when what time of day that you take them, like I mentioned earlier, it will change. But just, again, take some time, get to know your personality, because you can use those strengths. You can know when you're at your lowest from an energy standpoint or even a mood standpoint. Schedule your day around that, or and things I've beat on already. But this self-assessment is just kind of a starting point to help kind of engage this presentation. So, we've kind of covered this a little bit, but what are some other kind of characteristics of an introvert that come to mind? Anybody want to? We talked already about being kind of shy. Yeah, kind of
A loner.
Loner. They may come off as loners. Okay, what about an extrovert? What are some of the other characteristics that come to mind about an extrovert that we haven't already talked about?
Always excited, people.
Yeah,
Always happy, always talking.
yeah,
Not necessarily a bad thing.
yeah,
Just one.
yeah. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, again, trying to help drive this conversation. We already talked about that. Again, as I mentioned, it's about taking advantage of the strengths. Now, depending on who you talk to, and I tend to be on the side of build on your strengths, because that's what you're good at. Know your weaknesses, but in some cases, it may take a lot longer and a lot more energy to turn that weakness into a strength. And you look at, well, maybe is the time worth it? If you know what your strengths are, you may just want to run with that. I tend to be on the side of let me build on my strengths. Let me kind of find somebody or work with people who complement me and fill in those areas that I know that I'm weak on. So looking at it from a time perspective, energy perspective, where do you want to spend most of your time? If it's an area that you know that's going to really propel you in the career or direction that you want to go, then it may be worth the time to focus on that weakness. For me, public speaking. One of the things I did was I started seeking out more opportunities to speak. I also started a podcast. Actually, now I've got 2 podcasts that I work on. So that really helps with that aspect of it. Also, there's some fun stuff technically that I've been able to learn as well that maybe not fall into my strengths category, but it's an additional skill. It's a new skill that hopefully will benefit me in the long term, either financially or just in other areas. You know, one of the things that we talk about, and because hopefully either the cybersecurity career fair tomorrow or another career fair, is how to prep yourself for a networking event or some type of large social event, no matter where you fall on that scale. And presenting, you know, there's some things that I do, and we'll talk about a little bit more here later, that really help me to be the best on doing presentation. This isn't the first time that I've done this presentation, because I've practiced, I've gone through it in my head a ton of times. So the time I get up here, it's kind of second nature. Same thing with meetings, taking the time to prep for meetings and having those conversations and thinking about some of the responses. That also goes for interviews, but we'll get into that a little bit more. So one of the activities, and we don't have to get through it all the way, but I want you guys to start doing this, is developing the story, your story. And really, the point of this activity is to start, you know, where did you come from? As I displayed up here, we talked about where I started from an IT perspective. Where did I first learn or get into wanting to be in IT? And building that up to currently. Now, I really cut a lot out because for the sake of time. Yeah, really, it's okay to take that time and reflect on where you came from, because there's some rich and there's some really exciting things that people want to know. And how do you convey that to those individuals, whether through presenting, through an interview, or just networking with others? But if you don't do it and you're not practicing, you won't be polished at it. So that's really the point taken here. And, you know, developing that story. Everybody loves a story. I don't know how many times in the last couple of years through presenting or other things, everybody is talking about a story. How do you connect? People, it's just in our nature, we connect with stories. That's why the TED Talks are so phenomenal, and that's why they've taken off, is because they're really story-based. There's a beginning, middle, and end. There's that crescendo. There's that, you know, that plot. There's, you know, the person presenting, the speaker, is taking you on that journey. But if you don't have it written down, if you haven't taken the time to go through those areas of your own life to know what would connect with people, then when you get up to that interview or you talk to that individual at the networking event, it's just not going to be there. And it will come off forced if you're trying to do that. So practice, 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 which I'll get into here. So one of the things through this process, and again, we'll share the slides with you, is you're looking at the different competencies. What am I good at? Even if it's just through education purposes, a project that you did for school, that's okay. There's things that you can take out of there. You know, did I take a leadership position? Was I the project manager? Did I have to hard code, you know, in Java or Python or whatever? It's just really looking at those different things. Then it's taking those skills and describing, starting to put some more context around what you did with those competencies. What actions did you take? What was the result? So, you know, we got an A on that project, or if it's in work, and we got funding for this project. for the next 5 years or whatever that action is. But then you want to be able to take that and apply that to the situation. So if you're interviewing for a job, how would that have benefited their organization? So one thing, the hiring manager wants to know, how will you benefit their team? How would you benefit their organization? How will you fit in with their organizations? So there, in this, as you get through and are prepping for an interview, hopefully those that are looking at it here soon are getting close to getting out to the job market. Take a couple, 3, 4, maybe 5 different situations and run through this exercise. List out those competencies, list out the skills, and run through that for each one of those and memorize them. Have them just where they're coming off like that. You don't even need to think about it. It's second nature. Did you? She's taking a picture
Yeah.
of it.
And I'll get this PowerPoint and send it all to you as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
So now, and again, a little bit more focused on the interviewing side of things. Typically there's a point in the interview process where you have that chance to just kind of go over your background and telling that story and having those, 5 or 6 points at the ready and just going through that quickly. Quick little history. Sometimes you're not going to be able to get through, do a Game of Thrones type of detail. Maybe you need more of the quick little SNL snippets of a skit, but having that ready to where you've got the Cliff Notes version, and if there's hopefully there's something in there that triggers them to ask more, but then be able to go into some more detail about it. So an example of this, and I've asked this question before, give me an example of a time you took initiative. I'm gonna pick on you because I know you're a little bit more. Give me an example of a time you took some initiative.
At some point in my previous job, actually, I worked with a phone shop, and they had, something gone wrong with the phone when we were repairing it, and this person was extremely upset, like yelling at me. It's like, hang on, I can fix this. So I went and I had to get a different phone, unfortunately, but I had to get a different phone, and was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get you a different phone, but let me back all your stuff up because the phone still works. It's just we have to do this, this, and this to it. And I just backed up and threw everything on there.
Okay.
And normally we don't do the whole backup.
Okay.
So you took care of the customer.
Yeah.
I mean, in IT, those examples, I know for me, IT is this customer service organization. How are you helping the customer? Perfect example. Let's see, and it kind of already covered the second spot too. So you're dealing with an upset customer. One of doing the research for this presentation, I really like this kind of approach, is the situation, task, action, result, which we covered that a little bit. The other piece there was benefit to the organization. But when you're looking through those situations, or those examples, breaking them down by the situation, what was the task that you did, what action did you take, and then what was the outcome? Very succinct, very point. Doesn't have to take a lot of time to go through that, but be thoughtful as you're looking at that story, and your story specifically. And when you're doing this exercise of your story, make sure they have those elements in there. I already mentioned this. Practice, practice, practice. This isn't the first time that I'm given this presentation today. This is probably about the 4th time today, and it was about 4 or 5 times yesterday. it is, even if it's running it in your head, so you come all smooth and polished. Also watch for those vocal fillers, the ums and so's, or everybody does it, even the best speakers do it, but you want to minimize them as much as possible. And I absolutely hated this, and I did not do this until I started podcasting last year. Record yourself and listen to yourself. There is no better change of behavior than listening to those things that drive you crazy. And that will drive other people crazy, especially when you have to edit them out for a smooth production. And it takes time to do that. That has gotten me better at reducing those vocal fillers than anything else. Is, God dang it, gotta edit out another But that has driven me to be better, to save myself time in the post-production process, is being more cognizant. If there is a point, even if you're trying to come up with the next word or phrase in that sentence, take some time. Think about it. Don't rush into it. Though, especially in the interviewing process or even presenting, there's times things change, response of the audience will change, that will make you kind of stop in your tracks and you've got to get back on. That's okay, take some time, think about it. You will come off more prepared and thoughtful and honest than you will if you're just trying to stumble through it. And this goes for those that are extroverted too. For those who are extroverted, there's a tendency to get really engaged and start rumbling and just go da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you don't take time to stop, look at the reaction of the audience. Because really, whether it's an interviewer or an audience, you want to make sure that they're engaged in the conversation. But if you keep going through and not taking time to slow down and look at eye and body language, or eye contact and body language, you can just run yourself out of an opportunity. And again, rehearse those answers. In an interview situation, think about, okay, you can go online and pull up all sorts of different types of questions. Rehearse your answers. Again, come off polished and be thoughtful about it. And also take some time. I know one of the things when I was actually going through the state police hiring process and then got on the other side and was hiring people, one of the suggestions for the interview boards was, are they taking time to think about their answers? So keep that in mind. So the tip here is when the person asks a question, even if you already have that answer ready to go and you've got it in your back pocket, you're, bam, I've got this. Take some time. And just, couple of seconds, not any more than 30 seconds, but it just comes off so much better. And again, taking some time is coming from an honest place, a thoughtful place, and it really does have an impact on the person that's interviewing you. Some presentation tips too, or even we can put this towards networking events. Get there early. And we've had to do this with my daughter, and I've even done this with myself. I will get to a venue before everybody else gets there. Get warmed up to the situation, into the environment. As people are coming in, you're not overloaded, because what happens if you're an introvert, you come into a big room with a lot of people, you're nervous. You're nervous, and it just shuts you down. So fake it till you make it, until it becomes a habit. I don't know how many times I've seen that, is fake confidence until it becomes confidence. I didn't do it today because I knew it was a little bit more relaxed situation. And going back, when I was a trooper, I felt like I was Superman when I had that uniform on. I really felt there was a difference between Nick Sturgeon, the individual, as a civilian versus trooper or first sergeant Sturgeon when I left. Different person. I just felt bigger. And actually, last week, even when I was down presenting at USI, I was in a suit and tie. That confidence that you have in yourself when you look good, it will come out to the folks that you're talking to, whether in a large group or on one-on-one. So dress up. If you know, again, with that caveat of be appropriate to the situation. But in an interview or presenting, you know, it may not have to be full suit and tie or whatever. Maybe it's just a jacket or something. Pat McAfee, I'll quote him real quick, or try to quote him, maybe more of a paraphrase. Look good, play good, pay good. But it all starts with that, having that confidence in yourself. And the best way to do it, if you're nervous, is dress up. Again, we talked about this for you extroverts. Prepare, don't just wing it. You know, I know a lot of folks that are in this that just love to off the cuff, but you can come off like you don't know what you're talking about. You're ill prepared, or you're just BSing everybody. Keep to the script. This is where my extrovert comes out. I do like to go off script a little bit. I do like to kind of ad-lib things based on the situation, but try to follow your script. And then pay attention to the crowd. It can go for the introverts as well. If everybody's down, falling asleep, maybe you need to do something to gain their attention. Also,
I think the VA office is underneath us, actually. Someone's got PSTD.
Yeah. Oops. Everybody's awake now. Real quick presentation tips. Keep the text minimal. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but there's nothing worse, at least for me, than looking at a slide, even in wide, that is 11-point font with 750 words. Absolutely drives me crazy. Some of these slides are a little bit more than I like to have. Even this slide's kind of a little bit too much, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. If you're using images, at least at a training that I received, actually, I see a lot of this now, start with your images first. Images tell a lot better story than the words. They convey the messaging. I spend probably 60% of my time looking at infographics or images that convey what I'm trying to say before I actually get in and writing the text. Also, I've noted a little bit, I'll look back, but I'm not reading verbatim off of the slide. That's where that preparation comes. I do it to make sure I'm hitting all my points. You notice I haven't looked at notes at all this entire thing. You know, a couple of things here. This is my notes, but that practice of knowing what I want to say, when I want to say, helps. So I'm not fumbling through. Again, get there early. For networking, one thing that I've done and I've been more cognizant about, find 1 or 2 people, maybe 3, that I can connect with and have a deep conversation with. If I can do that at a networking event, even if there's 600 people there, to me, that's a success. If you're an extrovert, man, go at it. Boom, boom, hit and talk to many people as you want. But for those introverts like myself, find those few people that you can connect with and have that conversation. And to me, that's a success. But don't feel like there is one right way or wrong way. Don't feel pressured to, I got to stay here, I've got to interact. No, use it to your advantage. If there is, let's say a conference that you're at, you just can't leave. Take some time, go find a space. If you like audiobooks or music or reading, go leave. Take that 30 minutes or whatever to go recharge and get back into it. Don't just try to hammer it out if you have to. And for the extroverts, that may be a good way to don't get too lost in the conversations. Try to make those connections valuable and not just like you're trying to be that salesman, just trying to hit as many numbers or that quota as possible. Listen to your body. If you're tired, you're tired. Don't try to force it just because you think you have to or there's some social obligation. No, for me, sometimes, and where did I put it? I don't know if you've heard of the Irish goodbye, where you just, bam, I'm gone. You don't say bye to anybody. You just gone. Sometimes that's okay. I'm not saying it's not, but at least, especially if they're for work, if your boss is there or some of your coworkers can, hey, I'm out, so they don't think you just left them. But don't feel obligated. If you're done, you're done. It's for the social kind of aspect, those social pressures. You can think, well, I've got to stay at this party or I got to stay at, no, if you're done, you're done, leave. Hey, I'm out, I'm gonna go home or somewhere else. You talked about planning your week accordingly. Plan time for yourself, or if you're that extrovert, plan time for those networking events. I actually just saw something on LinkedIn yesterday, day before. Make 3 to 5 hours a day to network.
A day or a week?
Oh, a week, sorry. Yeah, a week.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're that type, if you're in sales, you may have to do 3 to 5.
For sure.
But it's about 20 hours a month. Yeah, it's crazy, but do that appropriately. If you want some of those one-on-one conversations that have that deeper kind of connected conversation, find those 1 or 2 people and do that. If you're just that junkie that loves talking with folks, the whole point here is to find out what works for you. And you may have to make some adjustments along the way. That's fine too. So another activity, kind of talked about it a little bit before. That's one thing I have a bad habit of doing is jumping ahead. I get so excited about my presentations, but over the next week or so, find these examples, look at, and for the competency, some of the things that you are looking for on the soft skills, decision making, problem solving, teamwork, et cetera, et cetera. Again, write them out using the STAR technique. And then practice. Even if it's just yourself or finding a buddy that, hey, here's some questions. Can you ask me? Those things will help you get better. So it's really interviewing, presenting, networking. The only way you get better at it is doing it. You have to keep up on it because it is a diminished skill. You find it. I spent 8 years in the state police. I didn't really have to interview that much, but find that time, find those opportunities to practice because you will get rusty. Even if you are a rock star right now, if you land that job and you don't interview for 5-10 years, then you're looking at the job market again. You want to you will be rusty. It's absolute guarantee. And with about 3 minutes left. Yeah, about 4 minutes left.
About 15 minutes for questions.
Yep.
Questions and answers.
Yep. So
I do, can I, go ahead, Jenny. When you are coming up with your script, even though it's supposed to come off natural, is there a good way to combine your soft skills with any of the technical skills that you have? Like, especially for our students, they're doing projects, class projects, and software development courses, maybe, for example. How would you frame that hard skill along with like teamwork, for example?
So for in an interview setting,
Yeah.
So it is always, so at any point where there's a technical piece, one thing I would recommend is have that project ready, whether it's on a USB drive, it's a printout, and have that where you can actually show them. An individual that I'm mentoring now had said, hey, I want you to, this is a thing that I did. It's a website. So having that program, being able to have it tangible to the interviewer and ready to go, because it's going to be asked if you're going in for a web app front-end developer, you will come off so much better by having that thing there with you. That, example of that project, that code, whether it's in the throw it up in a web browser and say, here it is. Have them get on it and play, play around with it, go into it. Is one of the hardest things.
Oh, sorry.
15 more minutes, buddy.
Yeah. Anybody can look great on paper, but what will distinguish you from everybody else is being able to show that to them. This is what I have done. Maybe a little bit harder on the hardware side, but have some of those things ready to go. If you tinker, with like a Raspberry Pi or do some robotic stuff on more hardware, and even bring that with you. If you just have it ready to go and say, what have you done? Here you go. It's doing those things that will just separate you from everybody else. Especially if all things are equal on paper, what is that one thing? And a make or break would be showing them that program or that piece of hardware.
How do you feel about GitHub? If you saw a link to a GitHub on something,
that's fine. Realize GitHub, you may lose rights when you upload it to GitHub, so be careful about the licensing piece. But and that's more for an intellectual property thing. But yeah, GitHub Labs are great as well. Just so you can say, oh, hey, do you have your computer here? Let's go to my GitHub. Or even as you're sending it, you get the interview scheduled, send them that link so they can have some time to go beforehand and take a look at it. But yeah. Oh, and I've I haven't seen this in a while because I haven't interviewed folks in a while. Where they will send the website address or something like that just to show, hey, this is what I've done. And even if you're doing a development, coming up with a cool, web-based resume or something like that, just to be creative, be a little bit innovative in how you can stand out from everybody else.
Or video.
Video. Yeah. So, I'll get to you next.
Well, the first question is for the students in the job fair. So you mentioned the cybersecurity job fair, which we've advertised to students, and then we have one here on campus next week. So when you're at a table as an employer, what's your expectation when a student would approach your table?
Be confident. And there's nothing, even for the females, there's nothing worse than a fish handshake. You just Be confident, make eye contact. It really depends on the employer. A large employer, they're collecting resumes. So it can be a little bit difficult, maybe versus some of the smaller companies that have a little bit more flexibility to take some time, but be confident. You don't come in with sweatpants necessarily. You look nice. You may not have to necessarily dress up, but be nice. Polo, jacket, slack, something like that. So you're coming off again confidence. You want to again distinguish yourself from everybody else, and having that person come in that they just look like they woke up from a night of being out, it's not going to come off well.
Do you expect them to know about your company or the jobs you have available?
The company, yes. So you should, most of the time there'll be a roster of the companies there. So pre-plan who you want to talk to. And if you're really interested, do a little research. For instance, pick on IU Health. If you're interested in healthcare and IU Health's there, hit their about page, look at some of the, in this case, IT. What IT projects are they doing? What even what their website is built on can tell you a little bit about their IT capabilities. But yeah, do that research. Now, if you're just walking around and you pick up the free swag, yeah, that's okay. I mean, that's why the swag's there for you to pick up. But
Your primary focus.
no, it shouldn't. If you're there and you're looking to get an internship, or you're looking for that entry-level job, or even if you're looking for a second career job, be smart about it, do that research, know a little bit about that, and prep beforehand. Don't just show up and I'm here.
Okay. I'd like to add on to what you said too about practicing. The job here tomorrow, maybe students really don't need a job right now, but go to practice. Or our job here on campus next Thursday, we have a job here on campus. Go walk around to those employers, even if you're not interested, and just practice your handshake. I mean, because like you said, practice makes it easier.
Yeah, but perfect practice makes perfect. So be cognizant about what you're doing. Don't just try to, I'm going to wing it and figure it out. Have a plan, execute the plan, and know what you're trying to get. The end result may take a while to get there, but be cognizant, be very deliberate about what you're doing.
Yeah. So someone like myself, they talked about going to the interview with a project. So someone like myself in cybersecurity, what do I have to take along with me? Because most of the time what I do is I create virtual machines on my computer and try to hack my machine.
So do you have a home lab? Or do you, so one of the things, and I've seen this, and I've asked this, what are you doing in your off time? And from there, you may be a little bit more descriptive in talking about it. I'm trying to think what specific, so you do it outside of the virtual machines. Are you working with the SIM? Are you working with a specific type of technology?
Yeah, I'm trying to do some kind of ethical hacking.
Okay.
So I have a virtual machine, I have my Kali, my Windows right there. So I try to use my Kali machine to hack my Windows machine without affecting my hard work.
Yeah. So I would do a lessons learned. Hey, screenshots, or even do some type of web-based presentation of those screenshots, or have something that you can show, hey, this is what I've done, talking the specific ways that you compromise or try to compromise the machine. So there's some ingenuitive ways to do that. But even just going through that process of, hey, I use Burp Suite, or I use, this particular, feature within the Kali Linux to do, X, Y, and Z.
That's a good question.
So with cybersecurity, what do you think would be a preferred level of education for getting a job?
So entry level. So I will say I really do like what Ivy Tech has done with their cybersecurity program. I think for an entry level education, I like the mix of the classroom and the certifications. Now, I'm a little biased against certifications, and this kind of goes as well as just racking up higher ed degrees as well. So it kind of, practical experience is what will, in my opinion, in cybersecurity, be the big differentiator. How can you go in and tell me, so if you're looking at kind of a red team position to be a pen tester, be able to talk about the things that you've done to compromise a machine ethically, of course, in the lab, and the successes and failures and what you did to overcome those challenges. The certifications are a way to gain education, at least in my opinion. Bless you. Bless you. Having Alphabet Soup, I have interviewed and I know people that have, it seems like every certification under the sun and cannot do the job. So it comes down to the practical experience. So that's part of what the practical experience under the cybersecurity program here is part of what I like, and just that mix. The one thing that the certs are supposed to do is to show that you can do and have learned that body of knowledge in that. Some people are good test takers and they can memorize the answers. Doesn't mean they can actually do the job. But so being able to run through in that, or even if it's incident response, I've worked with X, Y, and Z hardware and software, and these are the things that I learned through that, or if you've actually in a test environment, through a project we used FTK to be able to create a forensics image and that process through there.
So what are the kind of questions that's been asked during cybersecurity interview?
I mean, obviously, it's really focused on what the job is for. So if it's a blue team or SOC analyst type of position, it's going to be around threat hunting. So what type of threats have you seen? What type of the tools that you've used? What were some of the actions that you've taken, kind of procedural? Again, for me, I'll ask those questions just to get an idea if the individual is competent in that area, but I'm also asking the soft skills. I'm looking, can you communicate? Can you be a part of the team? What are your analytic skills? How can you take something that you've never seen before and communicate that to the team, to the customer, to your bosses? So for me, I put more weight on the soft skills. The technical is important. Don't get me wrong. You're coming into a technical job. You better have the foundational skills. And especially with cybersecurity, you better have a heavy, solid foundation in IT. Networking, desktop, software, those type of things, because the cybersecurity takes advantage of all of those, core kind of IT disciplines, database, you name it, whatever. But for me, and this again, just my own personal opinion, I focus on those soft skills. I have time and most employers don't have time to teach manners. They don't have time to worry about if you're going to get along with the rest of the folks on the team. That's what I'm weeding out for, as much, if not more than just also the technical proficiency. Did that answer you?
Yes.
Okay, so how much do you as a hiring manager focus on someone's major?
It's a basis of education, but again, it's the practical experience. Kind of goes into the whole other side of the certification conversation.
Okay, for example,
Yeah.
I'm a server administration major, but I'm also taking cybersecurity classes. So I'm getting that skill set, but it's not necessarily my major, so does that really?
So you've got your core competency from a technology perspective. Yeah, that may, and it also really depends on what the job is for. So if I'm looking for somebody to do more network hardening, so I'm probably going to, okay, do they have that core competency in server administration or networking or, whatever the case may be. Whereas the cybersecurity piece too, that is a bonus, if you will. That's just an additional area of skills. So, but for me, again, I look at the first and foremost in cybersecurity, does that person have some foundational skills in IT, whether that's a desktop admin, if it's a server admin, if it's a DB, is there some core technology, IT competencies? So if they don't have that, the cybersecurity piece is, they're not going to be able to build that cybersecurity framework without understanding the base technology.
So like for something like server admin, which I'm also in, a home lab is probably paramount, improving that you can do that.
You're not going to be able to, in the short time that you're in a classroom, to learn everything. Having a home lab, doing extra stuff at home, and being able to talk about that, to me is huge. What are you doing above and beyond just your day? And even stuff that I do now. I do a little bit of Python in my off hours, scripting and doing some other things. Even the audio video editing stuff that I'm doing, just to do something a little bit different than what I do day in and day out, but it's still doing stuff in my off hours.
I'm studying database,
Okay.
but